להתהלך בארץ, בתרמיל ובמקל.
Hi, it's Aryeh Green, the author of My Israel Trail, back with you for our last segment on the Radio Malitz Tales from the Trail program that I've been doing these last 11 weeks now. So, yeah, it's a very interesting position to be in here with those of you listening on the radio or watching on the video, to be coming to an end of what's been a series of wonderful, for me in any case, memories and recollections and discussions, stories of my hike on the Israel Trail and the lessons that I learned. And I'm actually in a very special place right now, physically, to do this last segment. Those of you who've been accompanying me over these last 11 weeks will know that I started to try and get out on the trail as soon as the corona restrictions were lifted, to actually film some of these episodes from places on the trail. And here we're in a very special place I'll describe shortly. You can see behind me if you're watching on video, and of course I do encourage you, if you're listening on the radio, to follow us on video, because there's something very special about talking about the Israel Trail while you're actually on the trail. And so here I'm talking with you today from one of the more special places for me on the trail, and that is Mitzpeh Harel, the lookout point in the foothills of, you can see behind me, the Jerusalem mountains, the foothills of the Jerusalem mountain range, looking as we are now east or southeast as the sun is setting here to the west. We can see the hills, the rolling hills and the green trees and rocky hillsides of the Jerusalem mountains. And you can hear in the background dogs, chickens, and perhaps we'll even have a visitor from the resident camel here. Now, Mitzpeh Harel is, and those of you who read the book will know, and the camel made an appearance when I was here when I was hiking the trail. Mitzpeh Harel is a JNF lookout point, or a fire lookout point, but it's also got a lovely little Bedouin khan, Bedouin tent with kind of a restaurant bar, and there's an area here behind the tent where you can camp out, which is what I did on the last night that I spent hiking the 1,000-kilometer, 700-mile Israel National Trail, Shvil Yisrael, which I hiked. If you've just joined us now and haven't followed the other episodes over the last 11 weeks, I hiked all alone with a 50-pound pack on my back. And I did it in the course of 8 weeks, 48 days of hiking, not hiking on Shabbat. And what we've been talking about these last 11 weeks in the segments that I've been recording for Malitz, for these radio and video programs, is not only the places that I walked through, and the history and the culture and the people of Israel, about which I learned so very much in the experience, but also the lessons that I learned. And the tales from the trail that I've been telling are tales not only of animals that I've run into, or excruciatingly difficult days that I've had, or the wonderful people that I've met, including trail angels, which I want to speak about a little bit now in our concluding segment. But it's also been a lot about the lessons that I learned on the trail. And I have to be honest that there was something just very poignant for me growing up in California, which was very much kind of a hiking culture, and then moving to Israel and having children here with whom I'd taken, as I mentioned, I think a few times, different school tours, trips with virtually every year, at least 3 or 4. But the truth is that walking in nature in the land of my people, here in the land of Israel, where our prophets and our forefathers lived and worked and fought and died at a time of reestablished independence here, it really was, as one friend of mine, Moshe, said to me, one long meditation. It combined my love of the outdoors with a deep emotional identification, I think is the best way to say it, with the Zionist enterprise. And a powerful aim to enhance and improve my spiritual and religious practice and commitment. And combining all these things together, I was, without question, able to personally recommit to my personal and also my national sense of mission and meaning and purpose, which is what we talked about in the last lesson that I learned in our last segment. The meaning and the mission that's involved in being a part of this return to Jewish sovereignty in the land of Israel after 2,000 years. And it was kind of that theme that accompanied me the entire trip, where I felt so very privileged, so very grateful to be able to have this experience. And it wasn't just hiking the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail or the Pilgrim's Trail in Spain and Portugal, or somewhere in Nepal, or Machu Picchu down in South America. It was here. It was on this land, the land of our forefathers. And there was something incredibly Zionist, incredibly moving, uplifting, meaningful at that element of my experience. Well, the truth is, there are a few things that I want to say here in closing on this radio and video program, and I'm interspersing different pictures to kind of give the feel for what the last few days of the trip were for me. I closed out this trip of mine here at Mitzpeh Harel with my last night and last morning. My friend Yaakov came and visited me, and I mentioned this camel here. We were having a beer, which is I bought from the Khan, from the Bedouin tent restaurant here, a beer, the same beer that I had 6 years ago in finishing the trail. And my friend Yaakov came and sat with me on that last night, and we had a beer, and our friend the camel came over and almost stole his beer. I'll throw that picture. You can see that picture here. And I had time for reflection that last night, and I wrote in my journal, and I sang songs, and I played my guitar, and I sat in my tent till late at night, and in the Bedouin tent, and then in my tent here, literally right where I'm standing. And the next morning I got up and I davened. I said my prayers with such incredible, what's called in Hebrew, intention, kavanah, that morning. I'll show you a picture also of my standing and davening that last morning, where somebody had walked by. I said, come by, actually on a bicycle, and I asked, would they be willing to take my photo as I was finishing up my prayers, my davening, my tefillah. And I spent a lot of time that night and that morning in the 2 or 3 hours or so that I spent walking then home from here, reflecting on all the lessons that I learned. And that's kind of what I want to do now in this last segment of the program. Because I've talked a lot about the lessons that I learned and about the meaning of hiking the trail. And now it's time to kind of come to some closure. But before I do, I want to speak for a second more about those trail angels that I've mentioned now a few times. It is a unique phenomenon. It's a unique thing in Israel. These Malachei Shvil, the trail angels. And the Khan here was a good example. The Bedouin owner of this Bedouin tent allowed me to stay here for no charge. The people who opened their homes, their small apartments, very, the most simple students or a family in a moshav or a kibbutz or a little town like the town of Arad, who host through hikers on the Israel Trail, are just a wonderful part of it. It makes you understand this feeling of family that we as the Jewish people have, as the people of Israel who are connected in a way that I think other nationalities and other ethnic groupings really aren't. Of course, there's strong identity that people have if they're French or if they're British or German or American or what have you. But, Jews are all descended from one family, the family of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. Even our tradition of a convert, one who converts to Judaism from a religious standpoint, also joins the Jewish people. And there's a tradition that person's soul actually stood with us at Mount Sinai to receive the Torah. to receive the 5 books of Moses as the beginning and framework for our social, religious, cultural, civilizational structure. And this idea that we're all descended from one family. In fact, we're called the children of Israel. What is Israel? Israel is another name that was given to our forefather Jacob, Abraham's grandson. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob built a family unit that became a clan, that became a tribe, that became a nation. And the people of Israel are also called the children of Israel. And this identity, this identification as a family unit almost, like distant cousins, all Jews are somehow connected, you really feel when you're hiking the trail. Because when somebody says, I won't be home, I'm happy to host you, but I won't be home, we have a wedding to go to, I'll leave the key out under the mat, please come in, make yourself at home, have a shower, we'll leave some food out for you, we're happy to do your laundry, here's some fresh linen, resupply what you need for going out on the trail again, or we'll make you breakfast, whatever it might be. It was a wonderful and uplifting part of the trail, and all sorts of people filled that role as trail angels. I myself became a trail angel with my daughter, who was living at home with me at the time after the divorce. We became trail angels for those passing through near or in and around Beit Shemesh. And trail angels were, as I said, kibbutz individuals or kibbutz or moshavim, communal settlement groups, villages as a whole would put aside a room for trail hikers. There are Bedouin trail angels. There are Muslim Arab trail angels, not just Jews, but Israelis, Druze in Daliat al-Carmel and Masad and other villages. I may have gotten that name wrong, but in villages in the north and also in the south in the Negev, where Israelis open their homes, open their hearts to hikers on the trail, and it's something that I will never forget, and that is entirely unique and an important element that I wanted to share with you, including a few photos of some of the trail angels that I stayed with. My cousin Chagit, Alei Shalom, who passed away just a few years ago, in fact just a year ago, was my trail angel not just once but twice when I was there in the north. And I had friends, Aryeh O'Sullivan in Srigim, and I mentioned last week when I talked about, or 2 weeks ago when I talked about Shabbats, my friends Ruti and Abraham in Tzfat, my friends Jacob Ner David and his wife Rabbi Chaviva. Just really amazing to have the experience of both trail angels who were strangers, and I mentioned young students with a teeny little apartment that allowed me to sleep on their futon. Just a wonderful element of the Israel Trail that makes it even all the more special. So my last trail angel was the owner of the Khan here at Mitzpeh Harel, and he made me feel welcome in so many different ways, not just providing me with the ability to stay and camp without charge, and of course giving me the pleasure of having his camel visit us, but I had a very nice meal that night, and he also invited me to come and sing the song that you've heard at the beginning and the end of all of these segments. Yoram Gun singing Kum v'hitalech ba'aretz, get up and hike and walk the length and breadth of the land. So that was a song that, if you joined me in the discussion of the Shabbats 2 weeks ago, I mentioned on Motzei Shabbat Purim that my friends Jay and Emmy came and taught me this song as part of reading me the Megillah, and it became something of a theme song. And in the end, the owner of the Khan invited me up because they were doing karaoke that Thursday night, my last night on the Shvil, and put the song up there when I had said to him that this was something that was becoming a bit of a theme for the hike, and I ended up singing. No, I'm not putting that up here. You're not going to see or hear that. Someday I'll allow it to be shown on YouTube. But that kind of returns me then talking about his hospitality to this last night and the reflections that I had, the gratitude that I had for the ability, financial ability, social ability, physical ability, what have you, to hike the trail was immense, as you can imagine. As I ended up finishing this miraculous 8 weeks of hiking, I returned to the sense, even though here we're not in the desert, to this sense of humility that I had been exposed to and experienced in such depth in the desert, because I recognized that my problems, my challenges, while deep, while painful, were just part of a wider flow of history of our people, history of humanity, and that just as I got through the trail, I would get through these challenges in the rest of my life. My sense of acceptance that I discussed also in the beginning of these of this series, acceptance of the reality that I was facing. Now that I was finishing the trail, I was very much motivated with an acceptance of, this is my reality, this is my life, this is where I live. This is my home. And this reality, I'm pointing to the hills in Jerusalem as the sun sets. And you can just see in the soft light what a lovely, beautiful, captivating place it is to be living. And I live literally, for those of you on radio, I'm pointing over the crest of a hill, literally just over that range of low hills there, which is the way I walked the next morning to walk home. Those of you who were with us earlier know that what I did was I jumped up to the north when I was in this area and then hiked south from the border with Lebanon, so that I ended up spending that last night here and could walk in about 3 hours home, which I accompanied by my son and my daughter-in-law on that last leg, those last 3-4 hours of walking back to Beit Shemesh. I will show at the end of, you'll see at the end of this segment, a video of me arriving home with them, where my kids and my cat welcomed me after the 8-week trek. But the sense of acceptance, the sense of purpose that I had developed over the last week, which we talked about last week, as I began to make my way here, coming home, was very powerful with me in this last night. And not just the acceptance of my reality, but the acceptance of the reality of all the challenges that we face in this world. And with that acceptance came a great inner peace. I've mentioned already the gratitude that I had for the privilege of doing the hike, but I was also incredibly grateful for all the support I'd been given, and that's where the context of my wanting to talk about the trail angels comes in. But also, of course, I was incredibly grateful for the support that I got, as I mentioned in an earlier segment, from my family, from my friends, from my parents, from my workplace. Just so full of appreciation to be able to do this, to do the hike, and also from a wider level, the appreciation of being able to living in this age, 2,000 years. Our ancestors, the Jewish people, have dreamed of, have prayed for, have hoped for the possibility of being here in the land of our forefathers, in the land of Israel, and to be privileged to return. To be part of this return to our ancestral homeland as the indigenous people here of this land is something that I found just returned to me again and again with a deep sense of gratitude as I was here on the last night, as it did throughout the entire hike. And of course, the sense of purpose, the goals, the objectives that I had, that I described last week, remained with me and were a very important kind of part of the recollections and the contemplations that I did in that last night here on the trail as I got ready to finish the trek. I can kind of only say in some sense of a summary, and this is supposed to be a conclusion and a summary and a looking forward, but the combination of thoughts and feelings that I developed as I finished the trail, it can be summed up just by connecting all the dots of these 5 elements that I've described in such detail over the last few weeks. At base, taken to heart, the individual with a humble sense of purpose, combining the first and the last element, the humility and the goals and objectives that give our life meaning, that sense of purpose. That individual has a greater motivation to forgive, which was a very big theme if you followed in a few of the segments towards the end here. Forgiveness of ourselves, forgiveness of those who've harmed us, who have caused us harm, forgiveness of God or fate for putting us in the difficult positions that we face. And the point is that a person with a humble sense of purpose has greater motivation to forgive, because they have a reason to live. They have objectives and goals which give meaning to their life. They have more to appreciate and more reason to be grateful, with a sense of meaning and purpose. And they certainly have an enhanced incentive to accept whatever historical or present reality it is that they're facing, because you just want to move on with your life. You just want to move forward with your life and achieve those goals that you've set for yourself. And I really do think that this combination of humility and acceptance, gratitude and forgiveness and a sense of purpose, it can be helpful for anyone who's seeking some solace, seeking some direction. I mean, it was true for me on the Shvil, and it's been true for me in my life ever since. And that's kind of why I wrote the book. Basically, not just to describe my experiences on the Shvil and how they helped me face my personal challenges, but how this kind of approach may be able to help others facing their own hardships. Now, one of the segments that I did recently about forgiveness on a national level expressed my confidence that these 5 elements may actually be the foundation of real reconciliation, real peace here in the Middle East. But I mean, just applying these 5 elements, these 5 lessons to the Arab-Israel conflict. But the truth is, that's really a topic for another time. That's what I'm writing my next book about. And you can stay tuned or follow me on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or LinkedIn or here on YouTube if you're inclined, or you can send me a message if you'd like to know more about the new book that I'm working on. I should mention, at least in passing as we're closing, that after the Shvil, after I was done with the hike, I actually put into practice not just these elements of forgiveness and acceptance, humility and gratitude, as I've been talking about, but the actual practical goals that I set on that day. If you followed, I guess it was in last week's segment where I was on the Yarkon River, and I talked about on the segment, and when I was hiking in the Yarkon River, I thought about kind of what am I next going to do with my life now that it seems that I'm going to be finishing hiking the Shvil in a week's time. And I set myself a number of different goals, and I'm really pleased to say that I achieved many of those goals. I did leave the work that I was doing with a very important organization, Honest Reporting, Media Central, the program that I ran there, providing services for the foreign press based in or visiting Israel. And I started to do much more activity on a wider level, focused on reasserting the legitimacy of Israel and Zionism in political realms, public speaking, in beyond the media, in the academic world, church leaders and the like. I also then actually acted on one of the goals I had set for myself, and in addition to, as a friend, helping my friend Yosef in his renewable energy work in Africa, I actually started to consult and then ended up joining the company as their chief strategy officer, helping to raise investment funds and providing some business and strategic guidance for the company. And that's been incredibly uplifting and rewarding over the last 5 years since the Shvil. I wrote the book. I mean, that was not a goal I set for myself, but I certainly set for myself a goal to help to see if these lessons that I learned might be helpful to others if they were facing their own challenges. And I guess more important than all of that, aside from working towards the goal that I said of opening my own winery. I haven't talked about that a lot in these segments, but I make wine as a hobby, and I visited a lot of wineries when I was on the trail. And I'm moving ahead with that slowly, the idea of opening my own winery, having made wine as a hobby for 20 years or more here in the Jerusalem Hills. I really have achieved, to a great extent, that goal of inner peace that I had set for myself. And the last and most important goal, if you want to call it that, I shared with you that I had come to a realization there on the last week there at the Yarkon River that I was open to the idea of loving again. And I found, or I often say that she found me, my Miriam, my caring, wise, patient, beautiful, loving, understanding, and wonderful wife, love of my life, Miriam, which perhaps I didn't know who she was. I didn't even know if she was out there when I reached that recognition on the Yarkon River that I at least had the capacity to love again. But I'm very happy to share with you that we were married 5 years ago now, a year and a half after I finished hiking the Shvil, and we with our what I call our Brady Bunch on steroids. My 3 children, who are married, with our 4 grandchildren, her 6 children, one of whom is soon to be married, have really started a whole new adventure in life, with our separate lives and together. And that was obviously one of the most important goals and objectives that I had set for myself, and one of the very important epilogues, as it were, to the story that I wrote in the book. I have to say, as I round up here, I'll share with you the closing video that my son took as I arrived home. But I can only say that through my experiences on the Shvil, physically, and in the processes of the inner and outer exploration and personal growth during and after the trek, that I really discovered a path which I'm confident can be of enormous help to others facing similar challenges and similar decisions. Based, as it is, it's a path that's based on time-honored wisdom and the works of giants, from Talmudic sages to modern psychologists, teachers and writers, and I just feel very humble and very grateful that I was able to both hike the trail and that I was able to share my story in the book, and that I've been able to share my story with you here in these 11 segments of Tales from the Trail. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for watching or for listening, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And what can I say except hope to see you on the trail. Hope to see you soon.
ובהתהלך בארץ, בתרגיל ובמקל, וודאי תפגוש בדרך, שוב את ארץ ישראל.
Hey, from Molina.
Hey, she's coming.
No, go do it!
Hey, no, wait, I'm coming around, wait. Dad, you have to run through, wait.
And he falls and breaks his neck on the ride of the house.
Woohoo! It's video.
Can you take a picture of him?
I got you, I'll take a photo in a second.
Daddy, give me your phone.
My house. And no one else
ובהתהלך בארץ, בתרמיל ובמקל, וודאי תפגוש בדרך, שוב את ארץ ישראל. יחבקו אותך דרכיה, של הארץ הטובה.